And welcome to the conditional example. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the stuff we just learned in our previous video about writing conditional structures in Python and apply them, okay, to a simple program here. This particular program is a software company wants a program to calculate the cost of its software package license based on a year purchase or a yearly lease. They also offer optional services like 24/7 technical support and in-house training to their customers. Basically, what we want to do is if you want to purchase it, it's $25,000. If you want to lease it, it's $5,000. If you want to, got this looking pretty bad here. If you want to get the 24/7 support, it's an additional $4,000 a year and training. So what we want our program to do is the total cost of the license and any options selected for the first year. So if we purchase it and we get training, the total cost should be $27,000 for the first year. If we lease it and we decide to do 24/7 support, our total cost should be $9,000 for the first year. Does that make sense? So we got some questions to ask, and that's where the conditional statement comes into play. So let's look at the pseudocode for this. My input is really going to be from the user, what do you want? You want to purchase it or lease it? And then also, do you want support? And also, do you want training? And so I had three inputs here, the software choice, the support choice, and the training choice. So if the software choice equals purchase, then it's going to be $25,000. If it's not that, let me fix that there, make sure all kinds of little things you get to watch me fix. And so software cost is going to be $5,000. Does that make sense? Once I'm done with that, I'm going to look for my options cost. So in this case, my support choice, if I want to support is yes, I'm going to have an option cost of $4,000. If my training choice is yes, then these are mutually exclusive of each other, right? Because I can have training without support, and I can have support without training, or I can have both. If I decide to have both, I'm going to add $2,000 to the option cost. Finally, my total cost will be the software cost plus the option cost, and I display it. So there you go. Pretty simple use of conditional statements, all right? Again, the expectation is you may have seen this type of problem or a very similar problem before, but how do we do it in Python? And hopefully by this point in time, you've done a lot more complicated conditional statements than what this is showing, but hopefully you get the idea. And again, we'll show you how to apply it to Python. All right, so in doing so, let's go ahead and get right into this, and we'll come over to our pre-written program again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a string, okay, and I want to ask the question, do you want to lease or purchase the software? I'm going to tell them enter P or S for one of the two. All right. Do you want to 24/7 support? Y or N? Do you want training? Y or N? Now, some of you may already be asking the questions. Well, what if they don't enter a Y or an N? If they don't, our output's going to be wrong. There's no doubt about it. We will get into probably starting next week validation. The reason I'm holding up on validation because we're going to use some functions to actually do our validation. That's what we're going to talk about next week, our next topic in this, okay? So be a little patient. If you want to play around with some validation, feel free to do so, but it's not necessary for this week. Does that make sense? A validation becomes a lot easier next week in Python once you understand a better way of doing it. All right? So with that said, but once again, you could do some things. You could actually loop through and all kinds of stuff, but we'll show you how to do that a little bit later on. All right. So in this case here, I'm going to ask the question, if str software choice equals, once again, if I'm comparing two variables, in this case, P to this, equals needs to be there. Okay. So notice the colon, notice the indentation. So my str software choice is purchase. It's going to be 25,000. Else, it's going to be this. You notice everything there. If my support equals Y, okay, again, I can use single quotes or double quotes for my string here. I'll be 4,000. Notice like I have on each one of these, on my else's, the colon at that area, okay? And my training's the same way. I'm going to add those two together, and I'm finally going to deal with my costs. So if we compare that to our structure chart, or I'm sorry, our pseudocode, Here we have it right here. It's very similar. We're going to ask about the purchasing. We're going to ask about the choice. We're going to ask about the support choice and then the training choice. Add them both together and display the cost. It's not much different in Python. But the only thing that's probably a huge difference to you is this is a command prompt type of language, right? At least at this point in time. Later on, we can add more GUIs around it, but for right now, as we deal with as a command prompt, for the most part, this is how we get our input and go from there. Make sense? Okay. If we run this thing, we'll go ahead and say, well, I want to purchase, and I'll say, yes, I want training. And I'll say, no, I do not want, I'm sorry, I want support, but I want no training. So I think what we should end up with is $29,000. Ooh, I have a problem. Option cost is not defined. What? It's 2222. Wonder why. Couple reasons why. Let's try this one more time. In this case here, I want to purchase. I want that one, and I don't want that one. It all works. Any idea why that worked and didn't work? I know the idea because I put lowercase in, and lowercase is not the same as uppercase in any language. And so what do we need to do? In previous languages, you were probably taught about a function called toUp or toLower. We'll talk about that in Python as we get to it. Once again, we'll get into different functions next week, and we'll get a little bit more elaborate with what we're doing. So right now, we can't validate, like I mentioned before, so that's why it didn't work, because we allow garbage to come into our program. That's why validation is important. But anyway, in this case here, we did get $29,000. That's good, okay? If we sit back and say we wanted to do a lease, okay, and a lease, and I don't know why I had an S there, and in this case, we don't want let's see, we want support, and we get no training, $9,000, and that's perfect. I'm just sitting here wondering to myself, I'm not going to restart this video. Oh, there you go, the lease or purchase of software. So P is for purchase and S is for lease. Don't ask me why. It should have been an L there, but you get the idea. Not worth changing at this point in time. Okay? So let's continue on. Let's test the other pieces for training. So let's just say we want to purchase, and we do want support, and we do want training. Now we're going to have $31,000. There we go. That works great. Okay. Finally, let's do one for purchase. And we don't want support, but we do want training. And it should be, let's see, $27,000. Uh-oh. I hit enter. It's doing something. I don't know what it's doing. What's it doing? Oh, it's abnormally ending again. And it's abnormally ending. Whoops. Let me do that one more time. I apologize. Hang in there. So we said purchase, no, yes. And it stopped on us. And it stopped on us because it says DP option cost not defined. Why? Why is that the case? Why is that the case? I mean, because we have DB option cost right here. See how we introduced it right here? But right here, it wasn't defined. Anybody got an idea what the problem is there? I'll wait. Go ahead. Everybody think about it. All right. What the problem is this. We're telling DB option cost to add to itself, but it's never been defined yet because we had a no here and it wasn't defined originally. With that said, I believe what's important is that we don't want to get into these situations, and I also believe it makes it a little bit harder to even write the program. I'm going to go back to what you learned initially, is that the first thing you should do in a program is declare your variables. So my recommendation is this, is to sit back and any variable you actually have, in this case, DB software costs, make it equal to 0. I would go ahead and even cast it. In this case, I would float it and cast it to tell the computer exactly what should be in there. DBL option costs, the same thing, equals float, and just go ahead and initialize it to 0. Now what's going to happen is that everything has now been defined. We'll never come across these issues again. I think software costs, option costs, I think we're good. Total cost would be the last one. And equals to float. So I like what we're doing here in the sense that all our inputs are now defined up here, all declared. Yeah, we got our inputs, our input did that into our strings, and all our outputs are now defined. So now we can go play with them. And then of course, what's will be nice is that you declare them one time. If you are using Visual Studio, IntelliSense will make sure that, will help you actually write your program and make sure you spell these things correctly all the way through. That's sort of the danger sometimes in sitting back saying, you can introduce variables on the fly. You may sit back and do something like db option cost equals this, but if I fat fingered this, it would still work. All right. But that 2000 would not be added to the right piece. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So allowing me to do that on the fly could potentially I fat finger, and next thing I know, my output is incorrect. So doing it first up here, and then allowing the IntelliSense, and when I start typing, to find these things where I can go down very easily and tab makes it a lot easier and a lot less debugging might be necessary if you do it that way. So my recommendation is always declare your variables first. Do not declare them on the fly. I think it's a great practice as a programmer and also a great practice as a person who's going to maintain the program all the way through. We initialize them as 0, but here's what I also like. We casted them. We basically told the computer a decimal should be in there, so it should handle it correctly all the way through. Make sense? So now that we did that, let's go in here, retest again, purchase, no on this one, Y on this one, and you see 27,000 comes up because we did declare it initially. That make sense? All right, I hope so. All right, so there you go. This is our program for the conditional example. Pretty simple in nature, yet I think it has everything you need to get started. Hopefully a couple things that you've learned in regards to making sure you declare your variables initially, like you've done before in previous classes, and then all the way through, you actually can recognize them. All right, notice the indentation, notice the colons, notice how you write conditional statements now in Python. All in all, a pretty simple language. Don't you agree?